Samuel Morrison never intended to change the course of history. He had merely been searching for an old family photo album in the attic when his hand brushed against something cold and metallic. Beneath a pile of dusty books lay a small, intricately designed device no bigger than a pocket watch. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, and a faintly glowing dial sat at the center. Samuel's curiosity sparked as he studied it. The object felt ancient, yet oddly futuristic. Without thinking, he pressed the glowing dial. Suddenly, his vision blurred, and his surroundings dissolved into a swirl of color and sound. His body felt as though it were being torn apart and rebuilt, and Samuel's heart pounded in his chest as a wave of nausea hit him. When the spinning finally stopped, Samuel found himself in the middle of a busy street, cars honking, people bustling about, but something was wrong. He turned toward a newspaper stand and felt his stomach drop as he read the date. September 12th, 1985. Samuel couldn't believe it. He had been standing in his attic in 2024 just moments ago. Somehow he had traveled back in time. For hours, Samuel wandered the streets, trying to make sense of what had happened. He marveled at how he had crossed time itself, but fear gnawed at him as well. What would happen if he tried to return? What if his presence here caused irreversible changes? He finally decided to press the device's dial again, hoping it would bring him back to his present. The world around him spun once more, and Samuel felt the familiar rush of being pulled through time, but when he opened his eyes, he was still in 1985. Something felt different, though, subtly off. He checked the newspaper again. September 12th, 1985. Samuel's pulse quickened. He hadn't just traveled back in time, he had created an alternate version of this reality. The weight of his actions hit him hard. His mere presence was reshaping history. As days passed, Samuel realized he was playing with forces far beyond his understanding. Each jump through time not only sent him to a different point in history, but fractured reality itself, creating parallel worlds with every trip. One evening, while Samuel sat in a diner, pondering his next move, a woman approached him. She was in her late 20s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see through him. She slid into the seat across from him, her gaze fixed on the device in his hand. "You need to stop using that," she said, her tone firm but calm. Samuel blinked in surprise. "Who are you?" "My name's Evelyn," she replied, her eyes never leaving the device. "I've made the same mistake you're making now." Samuel frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Evelyn leaned forward, lowering her voice. "That device doesn't just let you travel through time. It creates alternate realities every time you use it. You've already fractured the timeline. The more you use it, the more damage you cause." Samuel's heart raced. "I only wanted to see what would happen." Evelyn shook her head. "That's how it starts. But soon you'll lose track of which timeline is the real one. The more you jump, the more you risk losing yourself in time." Evelyn shared her story with Samuel over the next few days. She had found her own device years ago and, like Samuel, had been curious about its power, but every time she used it, she fractured the fabric of reality, creating an endless web of alternate timelines. Over time, she learned that time wasn't something to be played with. It was too fluid, too unpredictable. Samuel's heart sank as he listened. He had created alternate versions of the world, versions of himself, just by traveling through time. Each time he jumped, he left behind a different Samuel in another reality, living a life that may have been altered by the smallest change. "I've met other versions of myself," Evelyn said quietly. "Some are fine, but others, they're not the people I once was." Samuel shuddered. "What do you mean, some versions of you will make different choices? Some become twisted by the power of the device, losing their sense of self, their morality. They stop caring about the consequences, and they use time travel to control their worlds, reshape them however they want." Samuel felt a chill crawl up his spine. The thought of alternate versions of himself twisted by power haunted him. "You have to stop," Evelyn urged, "before it's too late." Despite Evelyn's warnings, Samuel couldn't stop thinking about the device. What if he could fix the timelines? What if he could undo the damage? One evening, Samuel sensed something strange, an anomaly, a tear in the timeline that he instinctively knew was a result of his actions. He followed the disturbance through a series of streets into an alley. There, standing at the other end of the alley, was another version of himself. This other Samuel looked older, more hardened. His eyes were cold, calculating, and as they locked onto Samuel, he felt a shiver of recognition and fear. "You shouldn't be here," the other Samuel growled. Samuel swallowed, heart pounding. "I'm trying to fix the timelines. I've made too many jumps. I need to stop the fractures," the other Samuel sneered. "You think you can fix this? You're too late. Time is a tool, a weapon. You can use it to shape your own world, your own reality. I've learned how to control it." Samuel's pulse raced. This wasn't just another version of himself. This Samuel had embraced the chaos. He had become something darker, corrupted by the power of the device. Before Samuel could react, the other Samuel lunged at him. They fought, each move mirrored as if they were fighting their own reflection. The device in Samuel's hand pulsed with energy, the world around them warping and shifting as the fight escalated. In a desperate moment, Samuel made a decision. He pressed the dial, but this time he didn't jump. He collapsed the timeline, triggering the device to tear apart the fractured reality. "No!" the other Samuel shouted, but it was too late. The world around them began to unravel, reality folding in on itself as everything went dark. When Samuel awoke, he was back in his attic. The device was cold in his hand, and the world was still eerily quiet. He had collapsed the timeline, erased the alternate version of himself and the fractured realities. But the weight of what he had done pressed down on him. Had he truly fixed anything, or had he simply caused more destruction? Time was no longer something Samuel could control, and he now understood its price. With every jump, he had created more chaos, more versions of himself scattered across countless realities. Even now, he could feel their presence, echoes of alternate Samuels living in fractured worlds, forever out of reach. Samuel stood in the quiet attic, the device still in his hand. He thought of burying it, of hiding it away where no one could find it, but even as he turned to leave, a single thought gnawed at the back of his mind. Had he escaped the paradox, or had he become a part of it?